I taught myself how to speak English when I was 8 because I knew I wanted to leave Colombia. I didn't want to be there. I just knew I didn't belong there. And this is a little bit controversial because people sometimes take it as like, oh, you're denying your roots, you're denying where you're from. For me, it's just I knew that I was meant to evolve into a different life. I knew that I was meant to do something bigger, and that Colombia was just not the place. And I always felt in my heart that I wanted to go abroad and go somewhere where I would speak English every day. And I was like, I need to prepare myself for that life. Like I thought I would end up becoming someone famous or Britney Spears. Welcome to Exposed, the show that gives you the raw truth about what it really takes to build a multi-million-dollar coaching business and a life that you're obsessed with. I'm your host, Juliana Garcia, marketing strategist and master coach. And after building a multi-million-dollar business from scratch, each week, I want to take you behind the scenes with actionable business strategies and profound mindset shifts to help you create wealth from the inside and out, so that you can become the exception to the rule in the coaching industry. I'm exposing the uncomfortable truths, the failures, and the topics that most podcasts don't dare to talk about. So let's dive into today's episode.
Tell me why you wanted to start this podcast. You're a multimillionaire. Why now? Like, why did you feel like you wanted to start this new venture?
Well, it was so interesting for me to hear everybody ask me questions as I became a multimillionaire, asking, what is your secret to success? What is your secret? Tell me, like, what are the things to win? And I couldn't help but to think that the things that have made me so successful are things that nobody wants to talk about.
Oh, okay.
They're all the failures, all the traumas, all the things that people just don't want to talk about because, it's vulnerable. And there's just a little bit of transparency that I feel it's needed in the coaching industry for other people who are building their businesses, where they're starting or going for their first million or multiple. There are things that they don't know that are normal, that they think, oh my God, I'm falling behind. I'm failing. And I see it with my clients. They're on the right path. Otherwise, they would have given up a long time ago. And their win is just around the corner. And they keep going and then they get it because they have a different relationship with what success is, how to get. It's about being really good at failing and navigating your own emotional state consistently. So I wanted to bring more transparency to the coaching industry and really just use my story to reveal what it really takes.
Yeah.
And also because in the process of doing that, I want more coaches, more women who feel like they just can never get a seat at the table of wealth to actually know that they can do it regardless of their circumstances. I did not grow up in a perfect environment. In fact, my whole life has been turbulent.
Yeah.
And I still was able to create peace, joy in my business, and really become an exception to the rule. And so
I love that. I'm a coach myself, but speaking on behalf of all of the coaches out there, it's like looking at somebody like you, it's like, how did she do it? How did she do it? And I'm sure you had that at certain points on your journey of like, how did they do it? Looking up at people who are more successful than you and studying those people and being at the table with those people once you finally made it, and then being able to look back and be like, oh, this and this, and then being able to share and teach that to us is so cool.
Yeah. And I've studied other people who are beyond where I'm at. And there's just character traits that all of them developed that they didn't have. They were not born with it. Some people were born to be billionaires or millionaires because they were just born with in an environment that naturally had them just inherit that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who came from nothing and became a completely different person. And so I've studied my story. I've studied the correlations between, successful people and how they have created something completely outside of their normal realm of possibilities. And I want to share it with the world.
So if anyone listening is like, it can't be me, there's no way, it can't be me, it can't be me, this is you being like, it's going to be you, and this is how.
Yeah, it's a choice.
And this podcast is called Exposed. So what are you going to expose to us in the first 3 episodes?
So I get asked all the time, how did you do it? How did you go from this to that? Every time I give a snippet of my story, people want to know, wait, how? What? So it was very vulnerable for me to put everything together. So what I decided is that I want to expose the process of how I went from being born in a third world country, not at all having access to any of this that I currently have, to becoming an entrepreneur in Australia and starting my first company. That's going to be all about my childhood, my character traits that every single person listening to this can develop, regardless of their circumstances.
I think it's important to understand where you came from. Like you said, you came from a third world country. So tell me, like, what was it like growing up in Colombia?
Yeah. So I wasn't even meant to be born because my mom almost had an abortion and she was 18 when she had me. Against all odds, she decided that she was going to be a yes, which I'm very grateful for. And also there are downsides to being the daughter of a single 18-year-old that has no idea how to parent, and it's all perfect. So growing up in Colombia, I grew up in a household where I was with my mom, my grandparents, and they were like my parent figures, essentially. My mom never had a job. She was always entrepreneurial. My grandma also had her own entrepreneurial thing, delivering baby products to moms all over the city in Bogota. And my mom was studying to become a dentist. And so she opened a clinic in the back of the house, like in the garden. And she kind of started her first business. So I feel like I always had a bit of that entrepreneurial gene. Now that I look back, we were always go-getters in my family. And the dark side of being the daughter of a mother that doesn't know how to parent is that she was trying her best, but she was very abusive. So she wanted me to be an A+ student. I had to be perfect, get A's, straight A's. If I ever was less than that, I was for sure going to get punished. So I spent a lot of time by myself in my room being like grounded, even though I was like number 2 in the class.
Yeah.
That was like, if you literally, I developed the mentality that I had to be perfect in order to be loved.
Wow.
In order to receive reward, I had to be perfect. So it was not easy. It was not an easy relationship with my mom. I always felt like something about that was not okay. Like she was physically very abusive. Like I would get hit all the time, yelled at. She said something that was so scarring for me, so much therapy needed. She said, everything that you create with your hands, you destroy with your feet. And like, I was like, well, why would somebody say that to their dog? Like, I still don't.
What does it mean?
Well, that's in Spanish, right? Because I didn't know. It just means basically like you always fuck it up. Like no matter how well you do, you always end up fucking it up.
Wow.
It wasn't easy. There was a lot of things that she didn't understand the impact of her words and her influence. And it's all because she wanted me to be the best I could and like not make a mistake and not fail.
Yeah.
And to do a lot of therapy and inner child healing in order to integrate that and let that be in the past. But definitely was something that just was difficult to navigate the relationship with my mom.
So you said that you were grounded a lot. How did you spend your time? Like, what were you like? You were alone, so you were an only child?
I was an only child. My mom, I didn't have cousins. I didn't have siblings. So I grew up in a very adult environment. No tantrums were allowed, no misbehavior. And my mom got married when I was 6. Thank God. To my amazing stepdad. He became like the buffer between me and my mom. And I think that I got such a great relationship with men in general because my stepdad was so loving. Like I feel so safe with the masculine. I've always had great relationships with men. They're always showing up for me. I feel understood. It felt like more with women I didn't get along. Like with my mom, I was not getting along. And so with men, it was always easy. And I feel like my dad was just my stepdad. So when my mom got pregnant, my real dad was not in the picture. So she was a single mom. And I grew up thinking that my dad had died. I didn't know he was still alive. Whenever I brought it up, nobody would talk about who my dad was. Like my dad was my granddad. So I thought my real dad was dead. And when my mom got married, I automatically said, this is my dad. Like I just saw my stepdad as my dad and he was amazing.
I want to talk about like the entrepreneurial spirit of the women in your family.
Yes.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about like the masculine and the feminine because the masculine is like the business person, the entrepreneur, how we understand it culturally pretty much throughout the world. And women are supposed to surrender and be soft and not be this like hustler, go-getter and achieve success. So I wonder if there's like a little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, especially hearing you talk about your mom and your grandma, like, yeah, they had that entrepreneurial spirit, but like, were they aware of that at the time?
My mom was very much in her masculine.
Mm.
My grandma, she's always been the perfect combination of like being driven, but being so feminine.
Mm.
Like she had her own business. To this day, she has it.
Wow.
Still delivers baby products to women, to mothers all over the city. I mean,
cool.
This woman cold calling people to sell her. I mean, she was just going for it. And it all started because my grandpa didn't want her to have a job because he was jealous that all the guys were just looking at her. And so he's like, stay at home. And she's like, okay, I'll stay at home, but I want to do my own thing. I want to occupy myself with something. And she always taught me about loving your husband, about making yourself pretty for your husband and like taking care of yourself and like, so like letting him lead the way. Even though my dad, I call him dad because I would just call my granddad dad. Even though my granddad wanted her to just, be at home, she wasn't like fighting, like, why won't you let me? She's like, okay. And I want to do my own thing. So it was a very feminine approach. She always taught me like the importance of building like so much love with your partner. They're still married after like 67 years. I don't even know. And so she was a very great example of being feminine and also driven. And I always admired their relationship. Like that's what I want for my life. And with my mom, it was very different. She was just very in her masculine. And that's why I always felt like there was something missing I saw her as very successful, but I was like, I don't like that vibe. I felt like it just didn't resonate with me.
So you believed I have to be perfect. I have to get straight A's. I have to look perfect. And again, be perfect. I'm sure that had you abandoning yourself a lot.
Yeah.
As a teenager, sure. But as you carried these beliefs on with you throughout your life. And one thing that we've spoken about and the reason you wanted to do this episode on childhood is it's important to go back and look at the patterns and like look at the beliefs that you picked up when you were young that cemented into how you live your life. And a lot of people don't go back and look at those beliefs. So I'm curious now, I mean, you've mentioned this, you've done so much healing, you're a successful multimillionaire. Do you feel like you would be where you are without looking at your childhood?
Not personally, but I know a lot of millionaires and multimillionaires that never look at their childhood and they still make it. They just feel not as at peace within themselves, and their work becomes the thing that they consume themselves into, and that's what they're very successful because they don't want to look at anything else in their lives. To me, that's not the vibe. To me is I want to integrate all parts of me. First pattern I picked up was you have to be perfect in order to be loved.
Yeah.
Right? Also, my mom, even though she was successful in her own niche, because she decided to niche, which is a good important lesson that I learned from my mom and my grandma. Choose a niche and just stick with it. So my mom's niche as a dentist was for elderly people, prosthetics. And even though she was making money, she was supporting herself and me. She always said, money is hard. It's hard to make money. Like, you can make money. Life is hard. Like she was always saying, life is hard. Life is hard. Life is hard. It's a struggle. So I just believe life is hard, like I'm seeing her, okay, you can be successful, but it's going to be really hard. So that was another limiting belief that I picked up along the way.
So you have these beliefs. I just want to go into your teenage bedroom, your childhood bedroom when you were grounded and you were like, money's hard, life's hard. What am I going to do? Just trying to figure out what you wanted out of your life. So I'm imagining 16-year-old Juliana. I want to know what you were thinking then, when you were a teenager. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it really even started before I was a teenager. I taught myself how to speak English when I was 8 because I knew I wanted to leave Colombia. I didn't want to be there. I just knew I didn't belong there. And this is a little bit controversial because people sometimes take it as you're denying your roots, you're denying where you're from. For me, it's just I knew that I was meant to evolve into a different life. I knew that I was meant to do something bigger, and Colombia was just not the place. And I always felt in my heart that I wanted to go abroad and go somewhere where I would speak English every day. And I was like, I need to prepare myself for that life. I thought I would end up becoming someone famous or Britney Spears. And I would practice the Britney Spears choreography in my own room and translate every song, translate every movie. And I literally taught myself how to speak English at 8, not to write, but I could.
How'd you teach yourself?
Dictionary, Saturdays and Sundays. As coming home from school, I would just turn on HBO and I would mark all the movies I liked, and I would turn on the subtitles and I would pause and I would look at the meaning of each word and I would put sentences together and I would like read and I would hear what the word sounded like and I picked that up. And so I was really good at understanding, then I became good at saying it, but I wasn't great at the grammar part. But I would still I could hold a conversation at like 9, 10 years old, which is wild, with my teacher at school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a all-girls Catholic school, which it was the worst time of my life, I think. It was like high school was just the worst for me because I didn't get along with women. Like my story was women are volatile. Women are volatile. My mom was volatile. Oof, doesn't feel good. I didn't feel safe with women. And then going to a school where it was nuns punishing you also. It was just difficult. I always felt like I would challenge the rules. I would challenge my mom. I would challenge the way things were. I would be like, but why? Like, why is that the way? And people hated it. They didn't like to be questioned. And I always felt like I was right. And looking back, I was right, but people didn't want the questioning. So I spent a lot of time grounded and I would just translate the songs, teach myself how to speak English, and kind of spend time envisioning what do I want this life to be? And I used television to dream. Like I would watch Laguna Hills.
Yeah, I was going to say, what were the shows you were watching?
I would watch Laguna Beach.
Yes.
And The Hills. And that was my obsession. I would just replay every episode. I would watch Cruel Intentions. I'm like, I want to live in New York, like the movie.
Yeah.
And I want to live in the hills of California. How? No idea. But I felt like that's where I belong. Like something around that. And it's crazy that we're here.
I was thinking that, like, we're literally looking at the beach right now from your beachfront condo in California, and you grew up watching Laguna Beach.
Literally. And I lived in La Jolla in the hills of California. It's insane how the power of your vision is so key. Like really visioning something that feels wild. I was so ballsy when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think that I was very naive about what it really takes. So I was like, I'll just go for it and I'm sure it'll work. And then as you do things, you realize, oh, there's some risk and there's some pain. Yeah. But at the time I was like, I'm sure that it'll work out. So I just spent a lot of time alone. Didn't have a lot of friends because my mom was always grounding me. And I didn't really get along with girls in high school because I was either loved or hated. And I learned this in the online coaching business that people put you on a pedestal and then they can take you down at any point. So I was either really loved and the leader of the class, and I would choreograph all the school, dances and like be the president of things and fight for our rights or whatever. But then I was very direct. I didn't know how to communicate things in a way that landed with people. Like I was right, but my delivery was terrible. Same with my mom. I was right about, wait, why are you punishing me for this? Makes no sense. But my delivery was terrible. And my stepdad was the first one to teach me communication and delivery is so important. And that's when my whole journey around communicating my needs, communicating what I thought began. And that's why I teach communication right now. It's like the dharma that came from my childhood. Like it's so important. We can know the truth about something. We can be the best at what we do. We can be right about it. But if you don't know how to communicate it, people are just not going to get behind it. And I just literally ended up with no friends because my delivery was so poor, eating lunch by myself at school and just being like, why do I feel so misunderstood? So it was not an easy journey to be in high school.
The title of this episode is You're a Product of Your Own Choices. So now I really want to know what that means to you, knowing like where you came from, knowing about your childhood. And like we talked about at the beginning, like I know there are a lot of people out there that feel like they don't have the time, they don't have the money, they don't have the access, they're poor. That can't be me. That can't be me. And so I really am curious, what does it mean to you? You are a product of your own choices.
So I didn't have a supportive environment. My mom didn't want me to go away and move overseas. My friends did not think that I was amazing. They didn't build my belief in myself in school. And for me, it was about a decision that I was going to have my back no matter what. So I'm so glad that I didn't have the support of, or that I didn't belong in the group of friends in my high school, because now looking back, had I been accepted by those people, I would have been friends with them and I would have stayed in Colombia because I would have been comfortable. I would have been, oh, cool, we're friends. I don't want to leave this amazing friend group that I always wanted to, be a part of. And they're still friends. I look at their social media. They're all friends still, 30 years later. And they all go to their weddings and they have kids and they have babies and they're all back there or whatever. And it's just so different from the life that I actually wanted. So everything in our lives happens for, as we know, for a reason. Every rejection, every bit of lack of support that we get is always working in our favor. So my choice was to believe, wait, I get to have my own back. I want this life, and I'm not going to let my environment decide whether I get to have it or not.
So you left.
So my parents got divorced at 16, when I was 16. We did a couple of ayahuasca ceremonies, which we'll go into another episode. I did ayahuasca with my parents.
Wow.
So my parents got divorced when I was 16. And that's when I knew I cannot live with my mom because we're going to kill each other. And I decided that I wanted to move away.
So aside from spending a lot of time alone and dreaming and teaching yourself English and being like, I'm going to leave, I'm going to get out of here, are there any other things that in your teenage years, looking back on now, that you're like, oh, this really shaped who I became?
Yeah. I found out my real dad was alive.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Okay.
And we were sitting at the dinner table. It was me, my stepdad, who I called my dad, and my mom. And my mom casually goes, oh, yeah, so you know your real dad? I'm like, what? What do you mean? I thought he was dead. He's like, no. He wants to meet you. He's coming and he's going to come visit you. You guys are going to go to the Hard Rock Cafe to have dinner. I'm like, my dad's sitting here. What do you mean? Like, what? And I had to digest that at 15. And when I met him, I just wanted nothing to do with him. He had left my mom and I had a dad that I loved. But I had to meet him and he had a whole family and I was meant to be integrated into his whole family. And I was just like, I don't want this. But he lived in America and my mom always knew that I wanted to move to America. So she said to me, you are no longer my problem. You are his problem. You want to move to America? There you go. That's your chance. And I was like, okay, well, let's try this out.
So did you go to the Hard Rock Cafe?
I went to Hard Rock Cafe. I met him. And that's when he introduced me to my cousins and my everything from his side. And at the time, I was just not available I resented him. I'm like, who are you? Why are you now here? Are you guilty? Like, what? I'm like, support me, but in the way that I wanted to move to Australia. Only because a friend said, you should move to Australia. It's kind of cool, like a cool place. I just went there. Had no other reason. It was cheaper because the US and the UK were very expensive. So I went to the US to live with my real dad in Texas. And I had a dream to go to Boston, New York, whatever, and go to Harvard, MIT, Stanford. I knew I could. He said, you will stay here with me and study at Texas Tech. I'm like, ew, I don't want to be in Texas. I'm not a Texas person.
So your whole life, you had this dream of moving to America and you finally got the opportunity when you were like 15, 16.
Yeah.
You went and you were in Texas and then you were like, wait.
Hell no.
This ain't it.
No. These are not the standards that I'm available for.
So I know you went to Australia. Tell me a little bit about that journey. Okay, so you went to be with him, but then you were like, no. Did you go directly to Australia after that?
No. I was trying to fight for my rights to want to go to Australia. I'm like, support me. I was like, please support me to go to Australia. So I was in the US, did not get along with him, super strict. And I said, okay, I'm going to go and live in Australia. He didn't support me. My mom didn't want to support me. My stepdad was like, okay, let me support you. Let's get you there. I worked my ass off to get that visa by myself. I got a job, worked 14-hour days to save up money and pay for the visa. And I did it all on my own. And when I got the visa, my mom looked at me and she was like, not happy. Like, she was not happy that I got it. And she said, if you leave, never come back. And I was like, okay. So I got the visa to go and I knew that was it. There was no turning back. Like, people were just like...
You burned your bridges.
I burned the bridges. I was like, God, move mountains for me to get this visa. And I prayed for months and I got it. And I'm like, God, take care. Like, take care of me.
Surrender.
Like, please figure this out with me. So yeah, I left everything and I packed a bunch of bags with like platform shoes. My clothes are always like the most important thing for me. So I just got a bunch of clothes and I'm like, literally, this is it. I knew that I could not come back. It just was not an option.
And you were 17. So it took a lot to save money, foster the belief that you could do it, pray, like get the visa, like all the things that it took to just simply get there. Then you got there. What happened next?
I mean, what happened next was I went to study marketing.
Okay.
So we couldn't afford university. I studied marketing and that's when I like decided my career is going to be marketing. And it was hard. I mean, I was 17. I thought I knew English, but the slang is so different. I couldn't understand anything they said. So I felt like, whoa, this is not as easy as I thought. I had the option to hang out with Colombians, but I decided that I was in a new country and I wanted to immerse myself in the Australian culture. So all my friends were Aussies and all the Colombians didn't like me because they thought that I was like trying to be American, trying to be someone that I'm not. And I always thought, well, why would you move to a different country and hang out with the same people? Like if you want to become somebody new, then step into that, you know?
Yeah.
But their goal was never to transform. Their goal was just to have an experience. For me, I had burned the bridges. I wanted to build this life. And I literally had to like leave my identity behind and start becoming somebody new. So all my friends were Australians and I got a job at a call center. And that's my first job, really real job that I had, selling funeral plans.
It's so random, but like, okay, so you're cold calling people and trying to sell them, like when you would find out that someone would die?
No, it was people who were about to die.
Oh, so you would call them, cold call them and say like, do you need plants?
Yeah, like, have you thought about preparing for your funeral?
Wow. How was that received?
Sometimes you would call people and they were already dead. And so the daughter picked up or whatever. And then you would ask for John, who had passed away.
Oh, yeah.
And then the daughter was like, is this a joke? Like, I can't believe, stop calling. So it was really hard in the beginning because there's just a lot of very sensitive topic, a lot of rejections. You get hung up on majority of the time, rejection after rejection after rejection. And that was like my first experience with sales, choosing to sell something that I had to believe in that was good for somebody, even though it was really uncomfortable. And feeling rejection and continuing. Like I built such a strong, thick skin when it came to rejection. And I'm really glad for that job because it really taught me I can do this. I can feel this feeling of rejection and I can just continue because eventually I would get somebody who was like, actually, thank you so much. This is so important. It's so valuable. Funerals are so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important to have that.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, especially when you were trying to build community, and if anyone has ever moved to a new place or has thought about moving to a new place, it is overwhelming, right? It's like finding your people, even finding like your hair girl and your nail place and like just everything that you have to build a whole life. And to be rejected by the Colombians, even though you were okay with moving on and creating a new identity for yourself, I was curious if there was any point there that you questioned, like, did I make the wrong choice? Am I delusional? Am I believing something that's going to cost me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I grew up with a lot of fear that I would fuck it up because my mom said, you're going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Everything you do with your hands, you destroy with your feet. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, so I was always very fearful of the shoe dropping, things not working out the way that I thought.
Yeah.
But I just did not indulge in the possibility of it not working out because I had no other option. I had no plan B. For me, it was like, there's nothing else. I'm going to have to step in the air and hope that there will be like solid ground.
Yeah.
So I developed this relationship with the unknown and anxiety that what if how am I going to stay? How am I going to pay? How am I going to do it? How am I going to, like, I didn't know how anything was going to happen. I had no idea, but I just took one day at a time, one day at a time. I always felt like I'm on the right path. Even though things were not working and things were difficult, I knew this was the life that I wanted. So I just didn't allow myself to believe that, like, what is the option? Going back to Colombia? I knew that wasn't it. So there's only a way forward.
Yeah.
It's like this commitment to the vision was relentless.
You decided. And I think
chose that was going to be the way,
Yeah.
period.
But I think you also decided even before you decided, because you were learning English when you were 8 years old and you didn't know like what that was for, that like it just all started happening so early for you. But then you realized, oh, like I have a say in this. I have a choice. I'm going to make this choice. I'm going to commit to this choice. No matter how hard it gets, I'm going to move to Australia, build a new life, figure out what I want to do, you know, work at a call center, sell funeral flowers.
Funeral plans.
Or funeral plants.
Insurance plans. Funeral insurance is what I was selling.
Plans. I thought you said plants. That's what I was like.
Oh, that's so funny. No, let's clarify that.
Wait, that's even funnier than I thought it was plants. Because I was like, oh my God, you were selling flowers and like calling. But like amazing. Okay, so insurance. Also, but like still a very tough topic to be able to sit there. And I'm sure you'd probably make what, like 50, 60 phone calls a day and get rejected by most of them.
Our goal was 100 a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
and I became the top salesperson.
So you climbed the top. At what point were you like, okay, I don't want to do this?
Well, I wanted to be, and this is again rejection that redirects you truly. I wanted to be a manager. And they had a very cliquey environment. So they always gave the job to the friends of the friend. And I never got the job because I wasn't friends with all the people. Back to like repeating the pattern of I'm not friends with the people around. Like I was just like, I'm not fake. I can't fake friends.
Yeah.
Like with me, you get what you see. I can't fake it. And that's what I do with my clients. I'm like, you know what you can expect. I'm a truth teller. It's so hard for me to fake things. And whether it's good or bad, it's helped me not shrink to belong.
Yes.
Right? Like not people please and be like, oh, I don't want to be alone. So let me just try to fit in here. I just haven't had that. That is like such a big thing that I feel like a lot of women struggle with. They're more people pleasers. They want to say yes when they mean no. Just, I don't know. I haven't had that. I've always prioritized what I want and everything else comes after that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what do I want? What's going to fulfill me? Burn bridges with my family, with my parents, burn bridges with the kids at school, burn bridges with the people at the call center. And I'm so glad they didn't let me have that manager job because had I gotten that job, I would have probably been a manager and stayed in the call center world. So I was like, okay, well, this is not working. So I went to university because I had become a citizen after all this time. And the first day at school, they said, you can study abroad. You don't have to do it here. And I'm like, wait, what? All you have to do is get a 98% score in your the best grades. And I'm like, well, I've done that before, so let me do that. And when I did that, I started going to university. I got an internship and a job in marketing. I ended up traveling the world because I got 2 scholarships for just being a good student, which was easy.
And you were like, free money?
I'm like, literally free money. Australia is the best country. They pay for your insurance. It's so great. So I'm glad I went there to start with. I'm glad I'm here now. So I traveled to 36 countries by the time that I was 23. I always wanted my friends to come with me, but they didn't have money. And I was like, I want to travel with my friends, but they didn't. They couldn't. So I didn't wait. I just decided to go on my own, which also gave me a lot of character. Like I can do things on my own. I can take care of myself. I can have fun. I can meet new people. I can make friends wherever I go. I can meet new cultures, understand people, which has helped me as a coach understand different cultures. And then I came back, but I was like, after seeing the world, coming to America, because I got another scholarship and I went to Facebook, MIT, and all these entrepreneurial places, like New York, I'm like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, that's what I want. I want to do my own thing. And I just had no idea how to do it.
And then you saw the ad that changed it all.
Yeah, I did. I saw this ad when I was in my cubicle in my marketing job about how to build a company, how to build a software company from scratch without an idea, without coding skills, and without funding, and how to become an entrepreneur and, recurring revenue and all these things. So I joined. It was $5,000, which was like a lot of money for me at the time, having a job. And that program changed my life because that was what got me into entrepreneurship and the mindset shift from being an employee to being an entrepreneur.
all of a sudden you were surrounded by these people who were thinking differently than everyone around you had ever thought. And I do want to, before we move on, talk a little bit about, like you've always had this thing inside of you that's like, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care what anyone's saying, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to burn the bridges. But I'm sure that you've experienced a lot of pain because you chose yourself, because you chose what you wanted. And it's understandable why there may be people listening, women listening, who feel guilty, who feel so guilty and ashamed for wanting more out of their lives, because they might be working a job, like you're saying, they might have become the manager where they're, you know what I mean? Like they're becoming the manager, they have a beautiful family, they're taking care of their kids, they have this life that they are looking at saying, I want more. I like this and this is good, but I want great. So can you tell me a little bit about some of the pain that you faced? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy. Like I know now looking back, you're like, oh yeah, well, like I left, I decided that I was done with my family. I decided that I was going to choose myself. But what did you go through in those seasons?
There was probably not a day where I didn't cry. I was always doubting whether it was possible or not, but leaning into the what if it works. So my what if was like, but what if it works? What if it works? And for me, wanting more was actually something that my mom helped me cultivate because she was very ambitious and she was always wanting to do more in her business and like her dental clinic. And so I always knew like it's okay to want more, but it's risky. It's risky. You can lose a lot.
The higher you climb, the further you can fall.
Right.
Yeah.
The more you want, the more risky it gets. That's what I thought. And that can be true. But for me, it was like I could not imagine a life where I could just stay where I was. It felt more uncomfortable to imagine being 80 and think, oh, I wish I had done it. Then, okay, I did it and it didn't work out. That gave me a sense of the what if it could work? Like, what if the opportunity cost is actually greater by not trying? And the reality is that sometimes it can be very lonely to go for more because most people, and this is what happened in Australia when I became an entrepreneur, I had friends, I had created the perfect life, I had immigrated, many years there. I could have stayed at a managerial job at a marketing company, lived and made $80K a year at the time, go to Bali, get a house, get married, have some kids. That's what all my friends did. And that's great for them because that's what they wanted. But I was like, this is not the life that I desire. And so my decision was, okay, well, I guess I'm going to risk all of that. That's security because I want to know what it's like to be the captain of my life. I have no idea what that looks like, but that's what I want. And I can't deny that desire. So I might have to burn some bridges again because I choose me. Like I've been really good at choosing me and my heart, even if people say that is ridiculous. You're not going to succeed. My parents were the first ones to tell me, don't do it. It's not easy. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I just always protected the desires of my heart. Always.
And so you're in Australia. You've been there, like you said, this beautiful life. And you're still like, there's more.
Yeah.
There's more.
So I joined the program and I became surrounded by all these people that were so entrepreneurial from America. And that's when I learned the power of community, the power of actually getting yourself into a room when you can. If you can't change your environment, that's not an excuse to not create the life that you want because it's up to you, right? You might have to change your mindset, your mentality, but you can create amazing things even if people don't support you. You don't need your mom to support you. You don't need your friends to support you. You don't need your husband to support you. We don't need anybody to say, yes, you can go do it. Like my coaches have sometimes told me, I don't believe you can do that. Like I had a coach who said to me, and we'll get into it in later episodes, that she didn't believe that I could sell a $100,000 offer. That was greedy. And I went on and did it. So we don't need to have the support of people and the validation of people to go for what we want. And at the time, I was building this software company and I created this vision board. By the way, everything I put on that vision board has become a reality, including like the house that I bought. I mean, down to how much money I make. Like everything that I did, that was 2013, is crazy. It all came true. So being surrounded by people that elevated my capacity to dream bigger, when I felt supported, it's like the rocket fuel just like went up. And I learned that people in America are so much more entrepreneurial than people in Australia. One thing that was very pivotal when I started that software company was what happened in my relationships with my friends was that they made fun of me for having a business. They were like, why would you do that? Like, how many millions have you made? And it was like month 2. So I didn't feel supported. And I started feeling supported by all this community of people that I, bought into. So I became a success story of the program. They invited me to America to speak about it in their like gathering event. And I bought a ticket to come for the summer with a return date. So I came to America. I was in Colorado. I did the speaking engagement. I was surrounded by all these people that I felt were my family, even though they were strangers on the internet. And I was like, this is home. These are my people. My family is here. My family doesn't have to be only my blood family, but the people that get it and that get me. So I decided to not take that flight back home to Australia and leave my car, my clothes, my furniture, everything behind and just start all over here.
You're just like, it's not even worth my energy trying to sell things. Like, no.
I mean, my friend helped me sell my car, but I just thought if I didn't have the money to go back and come back, like I just literally did not have the money to even consider that as an option. I couldn't buy a $4,000 ticket to go back a $4,000 ticket to come back to America if I had gone back. So I just had to figure it out. And I was willing to let go of everything that I had built. My dad almost lost it. He lost it. My biological dad, because he's a doctor, very strict, just security blanket, get a job. And I was like, oh, by the way, I am just never going back to Australia. It's wild. It's wild. Like, even when I think about it now, I'm like, what was I thinking?
It takes like an unwavering belief in your ability to make things happen. And you came from Colombia, everyone telling you not to. You went to Australia, and I think you found that community, you found those people, but then you realized, well, this isn't what I want either. So I'm going to keep going for more. And like I was saying earlier, feeling the pain of like other people not understanding or expecting your community in Australia to be able to support you and realizing that they can't because they don't understand, they don't get you. And then to finally be in a room, whether it's like virtually, which is the case for so many people, to be in a room, it really speaks to the power of community, and it speaks to the power of finding your people, the people who believe in you and believe that what you want for yourself, that's amazing. How can I help you? How can I support you? How can I assist you in getting there? What resources can I share with you? It's life-changing.
It's life-changing. And it's all wild that all these friends were on the internet.
Yeah.
That's why people say people don't like social media. And I love the fact that social media exists. I love the fact that the internet exists. I love the fact that we have access to information, because that's how I was able to open up my world to like, what do I not know?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get into these rooms, when you start creating relationships with people that are like-minded, literally growth accelerates. Like, I really believe that we are not the sum of the 5 people we surround ourselves with. Because, that's a saying.
Yeah.
I believe we are the sum of the 5 people we allow ourselves to be influenced by.
Yes.
And that doesn't have to be people that we are around. If you're surrounding yourself with people that don't support you, that's not a problem. It's your choice to whether or not you want to let them influence you. You can go and listen to a podcast like this. You can listen to so much information out there that can shape your mentality in a different way. And that's what I did. I said, where do I want to go? And where do I plug myself to get in that direction? Instead of, well, I don't have the resources. Well, who's going to believe me? Well, my mom doesn't like me. My mom doesn't support me. Like, I did go through all that pain, and I grieved the fact that I would never have the mom that I wanted to have. She was never going to be my mentor. I always wanted a mom that would usher me. Here's how you become successful. Here's how to deal with life. She didn't do any of that. She's like, goodbye. And I resented that for many years. And then I did a lot of work to accept, okay, this is her. And now it's on me to parent myself and to be my own supporter.
Guide. Yeah.
Like and guide.
Yeah.
So we don't need to have people be our cheerleaders. We have to be our first cheerleader. And then if we get into a community of people that will support you, and that's just going to expedite everything, because your mentality is going to be reinforced and cemented. That's why my clients, when they get into my world, they're surrounded by people who believe I can have a premium business. I can charge more money. And then they get coached on that. And then it gets cemented. And then it becomes their reality because they tune out everything else.
It makes it easier to tune out everything else. So, okay, someone's listening to this right now. I know it. That is wanting to be a coach. They're wanting to start their own business. They're feeling like everybody around me is so negative. Everybody around me, all they want to do is talk about people from high school, like the environment. What would you say to them? So I think it is like start a community, get online, find your community. But do you have any tangible, this is what you should do to put yourself in those rooms? Is it post on social media? Is it, you can listen to podcasts all day long, but what's going to get them closer to being in those rooms?
For me, it was paying to be in the rooms. I had to be in the room with people where A, I could be coached towards the direction that I wanted my life to go, and B, around people who were going through the same thing that I was going through, so we could all navigate it together. So that's why coaching became so powerful. Like that first coaching program that helped me build my software company from scratch, that was a coaching container.
Yeah.
And I started coaching people inside of that container. So I was not passionate about software, but I did ask my mentor at the time, hey, I want to become a coach, right? Because I wanted to get into that world and help people and see them grow and succeed. And he said, don't do it. Coaches don't make money. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess coaches don't make money. So I'm not going to get into a coaching content. I'm not going to hire somebody to teach me how to be a coach or try to be a coach because, coaches, they don't make money and it's not the vibe. You have software companies more scalable and all of that. So I just thought, okay, that's a reality.
And you had already done so much work and come so far and fostered this crazy belief in yourself. And you have this mentor who's like, yeah, not realistic, girl.
No.
Simmer down, lower your expectations. Did those thoughts from your childhood start to bubble up again of it's hard, money's hard, if the thing that you want, it's going to be hard?
Yeah. I thought I had to work on the thing I don't want to do in order to make money,
Mm-hmm.
Or I need to go for the thing that makes me money, not the thing that I want. I knew helping people with marketing because I had already developed a lot of skill sets in terms of how to effectively sell, how to market, because that's what I learned in the software program, how to build a software company. I learned so much about creating a product that solves a problem, how to sell it. I became really good at marketing and sales through that. So I learned so much about marketing that I thought, okay, well then if coaches don't make money, don't become a coach, then let me help coaches with their marketing because they want to pay to get help with being good at marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I wanted. I wanted to coach people. I didn't want to have an agency, which is what I ended up creating. I created an agency where I help coaches launch their programs because I learned it from working at a startup where they did that. And so I just went off and did it on my own. And I was burnt out, but I was thinking, okay, well, this is how you make money. You work hard. You stretch yourself thin and then you're available 24/7 for your clients. And then you don't charge as much because, you just never know. It's like all my childhood reasons, all my childhood things kind of became real,
Yeah. So how did you get past that? How did you bust through that block and just keep going? Even looking back on your whole journey, we've talked about your childhood and how every single person has been like, no, dream smaller. No, that's too hard. No, don't do it. You don't want to do this. Looking back, what do you feel like you can, what's the testament to your success? Is it your mindset? Is it the beliefs that you've had in yourself? Is it just choosing, I'm never going to abandon myself. I'm always going to have my own back. Which thing can you look back and be like, this is why I got to where I am?
Such a great question. Up until that point, I didn't get to where I was by being business savvy. I didn't get to where I was by being the smartest, most educated person in the room. I got to where I was because I was very resilient. I was very stubborn and delusional. I was willing to believe in things that made no sense, even though everybody told me it's crazy. I chose to think but there's a chance. If there's 1 in a million chance, what if I could be the 1 in a million? I just thought I had a chance. And I chose to believe that I could do it. Like, what if it works? Only because the other option was just not what I wanted. It was just always like that choice. Okay, do I want to do this? Well, that seems terribly scary and terrifying. Okay, what's the other option? Oh, go back to the life that I don't want? Okay, well, there's no other option. It was so easy for me, even as a 17-year-old, to choose to move to Australia, even to move from Australia to America. It was just like, I just don't want that life. So for me, it was about being resilient and having faith that somehow I was getting closer to the path. And eventually, when I started learning the business skills, that's what actually got me to my first million, because mindset is everything. It was my mindset. It was my mentality. It was, I'm going to have my own back. I'm willing to let go of everything that I have in order to create the life that I want. I was willing to lose a lot. I was willing to lose. I was willing to let go of people, let go of identities, let go of mentalities. I'm like, I'm willing to let go for what could be the payoff. Because I can always go back and rebuild what I know I could. I could always go back and be like, okay, mom, you were right. Let me get a job at your clinic. You know what I mean? That's the known path. But what about the path that we don't know that could happen? So for me, it was that. It was fostering that what if it works out mentality.
Have you ever heard that quote that's like the guy who says like sink the ships, like sink all of your ships so you have no other options? Like that's totally what you've done.
And honestly, I would not recommend, for example, I quit my job and then started this software company. I would not recommend that people quit their jobs and then just go into entrepreneurship. I know for me, that's what I did, but it was hard. I had no money. I quit my job. I had savings, but when I moved here, which we'll talk about, like I ended up in a lot of debt. I had no money. I moved to America and I started trying to like build this agency and business. And it was so hard. I thought it was going to happen a lot faster. I used all my savings. I ended up getting into so much debt. So it was not easy. I would not recommend it to people because then you put yourself in a real, like in a scarcity environment within yourself. And it's just not the most conducive for creativity, for results. But it definitely puts a fire under your ass. I do not recommend it for people. I don't want, please, anyone listening, keep your job and manage your mind so that you can do both, right? Or if you feel like, fuck it, I'm going to do it, obviously do you. But I think that we don't have to be so, I was just very radical and very impulsive. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to move. I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to go. And that comes with a lot of pain and a lot of risks. But I am the product of you can feel really hard feelings and you can still make it. Like you can be alone, no support system, nothing, and you can still survive. Like you are always provided for.
So all of the coaches listening that just got done crying, their daily cry of the day.
Yeah.
You're doing something right. Like you're feeling the feelings, you're moving through it. And it can feel like, especially as a woman, that when you're feeling emotional or when you're feeling sad, overwhelmed, stressed, that like those are bad feelings and you shouldn't feel those things, but it's actually a sign that you're doing something right.
Oh my God, 100%. I developed this concept called emotional elasticity. And what it is, your capacity to feel a wide range of feelings without letting it break you. Because if you want a lot of success, you got to be willing to experience
the contrast.
Also the contrast. And that's something that I became really good at. And I started developing all throughout my childhood. I was experiencing a lot of lows. So I expanded my capacity to feel really hard feelings that I feel like the world at this point, they don't want to feel. People want everything to be easy. People want everything to just happen. Just I take action, where's my result? I take action, where's my result? And it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So when we expand our capacity to feel disappointment, failure, rejection over and over again in the things that we want the most, we're expanding our capacity to receive the success, the joy, the excitement, the ecstasy, the holy fuck, is this real energy? So let yourself remember that all the darkness that you're feeling right now is just a representation of how good it's going to feel. You just got to keep holding yourself through it.
Trust feels like a big word for you.
Yeah.
Trust. Okay. So all of this brings us to the point where you're talking to your mentor. He's saying, don't become a coach. Coaches don't make money. And then you got your first client. But that's going to be the story for the next episode. Your first client to your first million.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. I just want to thank you on behalf of the audience because it's so refreshing to hear someone share, like, yeah, I cried every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt the hard feelings. Yeah, like, and that's why I wanted to ask you the specifics of like, well, what were you thinking when you were in your room? And everybody was telling you that you had to be perfect and you were grounded and like, what were you dreaming? What were you desiring? And to see this beautiful life that you've created for yourself and to be sharing those insights with us on this podcast. Can't wait to tune into the next episode.
I know. I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. It's going to be tactical. I'm going to be revealing all the practical things I did, the business mistakes that I made, so that you guys don't have to go through that. So stay tuned because it's going to be delicious. Thank you so much for tuning in. Look, I'm going to be honest. I never like leaving reviews or sharing episodes unless it's something that really moved me. So if this show resonated with you today, please leave a review. It would mean the world to me. And send it to somebody who really wants to know the raw, exposed truth about what it really takes to create $1 million business and a delicious life. And as a thank you, I'm gifting you a free mini course about the 3 mistakes that coaches make that repel premium clients and how to fix it so that you can start attracting clients now. Check out the show notes to access it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.